COP30 ended with dozens of decisions approved, but without consensus on a proposal that drew a lot of attention, a global roadmap to phase out fossil fuels. The idea gained support from more than 80 countries, but did not make it into the final declaration. So, what happens next? I met André Corrêa do Lago, the president of COP30, who will continue to preside over the process until the next climate conference next November in Turkey, here at the inner gardens of the Itamaraty Palace, Brazil's historic building housing the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, to talk about what the conference delivered, where it fell short, and how Brazil's presidency plans to move the discussion forward.
For the last year, we've been presenting COP30 as a COP that should show the transition from the focus on negotiation to a focus on implementation. And so we believe also that multilateralism was strengthened because at the end, we had 56 decisions, which is a record in COPs that were approved by consensus.
But do we have roadmaps? I mean, clear steps?
There was a movement that was very much inspired by President Lula in his speeches, mostly in the summit, and a little before the summit and during the summit, in which President Lula talked about the idea of having a roadmap to effectively do what we already decided in Dubai, which is to transition away from fossil fuels. So there was this movement that President Lula provoked, but it was outside of the agenda because these are themes that are extremely complex and it's very difficult to put in the agenda. So this became like a parallel discussion, but somehow created enormous expectations and somehow characterized COP30. And it is in that sense that Brazil, at the end of the COP, proposed that the Brazilian presidency, since we still have 11 months ahead, that the Brazilian presidency would work on a roadmap to present as an initiative of the Brazilian presidency and as a contribution of the Brazilian presidency.
That's right. You brought that commitment in one of the closing sessions of COP30.
We know some of you had greater ambitions for some of the issues at hand. I know the youth civil society will demand us to do more to fight climate change. I want to reaffirm that I will try not to disappoint you during my presidency. I, as president of COP30, will therefore create two roadmaps, one on halting and reverting deforestation, another to transitioning away from fossil fuels in a just, orderly and equitable manner.
And so I'd like to ask you, how is that work going? Are you already working on this? It's two roadmaps, right? Fossil fuels and deforestation.
Yes, we are already working on the structure of that roadmap, but we have to remember that this roadmap has no mandate from the COP. And so Brazil is not going to do something to explain to the world what to do. That Brazil is a country that is particularly well positioned to do that, because we are at the same time a country that has 90% of its electricity renewable, and at the same time is a country that has become one of the most important exporters of oil. So Brazil has the two positions, and so I believe that we can try to have a document that brings the information in a balanced way.
And just the last issue I'd like to touch on, China. What was China's role in COP30? You as president of COP, how do you see China's role during this conference?
I think that China was absolutely key for the results of COP30. China was impressively constructive, and China presented alternatives and solutions for the texts that were being discussed. And we are so thankful to the Chinese delegation for being so constructive from the very first moment to the last moment of the COP.
And do you see opportunities, avenues for collaboration bilateral collaboration between Brazil and China beyond all the multilateral institutions that...
Absolutely, because I think that China is today the country that is more committed to the transition to lower emissions economy. And this is the key for combating climate change. But we cannot underestimate the reforestation project that is absolutely essential for the roadmap that we're going to establish on the end of deforestation and the increase in the coverage of forests in the world. So China is going to be absolutely key in this new economy, and China already has numbers to show.
Great. Ambassador, thank you very much.
Thank you
It's
very
good.
much.
Thank you.
Lovely to have you here.